and welcome to the show! I am Wolfie Bane, your host for today, and we are back doing, once again, another Pokemon very biased Dragon-type trainer reviews Pokemon types tier list, and we are doing the arch-enemy of all Dragon-type trainers, one of my favorite types. Despite me being a Dragon trainer, I love this type. It is the Fairy type, a very, very well anticipated one from what I understand from a lot of people's perspective. People were really excited to see what my view on a lot of the Fairy types is, basically. Because everyone knows I am a Dragon trainer when it comes down to it. I always use Dragon-type Pokemon. I've barely ever made a team that doesn't have dragons on it. At least in some aspect. And the ones that don't usually have things that are effectively honorary dragons on the team. Like, there's a few Pokemon which aren't exactly dragon types, but let's be honest, they're kind of dragon types. Like, my Gen 1 regular team, which obviously pretty much always has Charizard on it, and occasionally has Gyarados on it as well, which is effectively a dragon. And things like that. So, we are going to be having some fun today with the Fairy type. Now, Fairy type is a very, very fun type. A lot of people complain about Fairy type, think it's overpowered. It's really, really not. I've never understood why people think Fairy type is overpowered. Fairy is a balance type. I will 100% say that. Fairy was made as a balance to the game type. I also just realized I'm pretty sure I spelled that word wrong. How do you spell attention? No, it's double T. It looks wrong for some reason. E-N-T-I-O-L. Yeah, it's spelled right. I don't know. It looks wrong. You know, have you ever seen a word like that? But yeah, I'm a huge fan of Fairy type for one reason above all the others. Actually, no, there's two reasons. One, I genuinely like a lot of Fairy Pokemon. I think a lot of Fairy Pokemon are really cool, really good designs. It's a nice add for a lot of types. I just think it makes certain Pokemon which were like, they're cool. I like them. It makes them like a tier above, which I think is pretty nice. I like the type. It was built as a balanced type, as I said, because Fairy was designed specifically to counter the Dragon type, right? Everyone knows that. That's what it's famous for. But it's also designed to check the Fighting type and the Dark type, which is good. It was also designed to give when they also did that, they gave Poison types and Steel types much more offense, because let's face it, Poison types pretty early on Pokemon, not great. Same with Steel types were obviously very good, but not good on offense. They were always very good on defensive, and they didn't really have an offensive option. Now there's something really scary that Steel types was very good against, which is always nice to see. So it changed up a lot of things. Also, having something else that was good against fighting is so super, super, super needed. I still think fighting's a little broken, even though Fairy was added as a check to fighting types. And against dark types, which makes 100% sense. I will 100% say, though, that I personally think Fairy type being resistant to Bug type is a little mean. Bug didn't need a nerf, guys. Let's be honest here. But yes, that is a thing. So, what it causes is some very fun Pokemon. But also, this is the main reason I love the Fairy type. Besides just them adding some really good Pokemon. Fairy type being added opens up a lot of doors for Dragon type. Because Dragon type, the big obvious thing about Dragon type, which was, I'm pretty sure, their main reason for a lot of the early Dragon types, for the Gen 5 and below Dragons, or at least actually no, let's go Gen 4 and below. Let's go Gen 4 and below. Pretty much every powerful Dragon type from Gen 4 and earlier is quad weak to Ice, right? Was quad weak to Ice. For the simple fact that Ice was the only check against Dragon. Really, let's be honest here. Because a Dragon, back in the day used to be super weak to two types. Dragon and Ice. If you put Dragon is weak against Dragon and not a second typing, you come up with a significant problem. because the dragon's main weakness is dragon, it's just gonna be dragons and nothing else. It's the kind of catch-22. Dragons are very, very powerful Pokemon. Just outright, they beat most of the types very comfortably. They have very few bad matchups. But originally, at least, with the original typing chart. So because of that, dragons being their main weaknesses were ice types or dragon types, you got a lot of powerhouse dragon types just matching up and bashing into each other. Because let's face it, most early ice types were shite. Back in the early gens, there were not that many good ice type Pokemon. And the ones that were pretty okay had some major weaknesses, like Articuno. Articuno's got good stats, but it's really weak to a lot of things. So, not really a good check against a dragon, really, right? Because if they don't bust out the dragon at it, which, by the way, the dragon has a good chance of just killing Articuno outright with a different move. Or honestly, a powerful enough stab dragon move on us, because dragons hit very, very hard, pretty much universally. That you had to occasionally bring... You basically had to bring another dragon to check your opponent's dragon. Meaning that since the dragon's the iconic centerpiece, you have to bring another dragon, which loses diversity on types, right? But adding fairy to the game meant they had a counter to dragon, which dragon didn't really have a way to just beat through, because fairy types tend to be very, very bulky to compensate for the dragon's massive offense. And they're immune to one of dragon's stabs, being dragon. They're immune to it, which is a cool way of doing it. And because of that, basically, dragons have to use their other type to try and smash through the fairy, which often they can do. But it at least means that it's not a free attack. And the biggest, and honestly, the genuinely, in my opinion, main Pokemon that caused the fairy type to exist is Hydreigon. Hydreigon was insane for the simple fact that he was the only true special attacker dragon early on. Let's face it, Altaria was because Dragonite, physical attacker. Salamence, physical attacker. Flygon, physical attacker. Altaria was a tank. Garchomp, massive physical attacker. So because of those guys being physical attackers, the strongest dragon-type move is Draco Meteor, right? Outside of... The strongest general-purpose dragon-type move is Draco Meteor, which is a special move. Hydreigon was the first truly special attacker dragon, and it's Dragon Dark-type, which is very good, with Levitate. Very scary Pokemon. Everyone knows it. I love Hydreigon. I love my Ghidorah. But because of that, you could basically build a few builds which just relied on just throw out Draco Meteor and forget, right? That was kind of how you could play Hydreigon. You were throwing out the Draco Meteor, and if they didn't bring a Steel type, pretty much anything in front of it was obliterated. Because Steel resisted Dragon. It was the only resistance for Dragon, Steel. And because of that, since there was no good answer, it limited what you could bring, because you had to accept that something was dying to the first Draco Meteor. In-game. So, yeah. They added Fairy, so you had a free change in. And that was it. And they literally made Fairy the hard counter to Hydreigon, because Hydreigon was a Dragon Dark type. And Fairy is now, when they made Fairy, they made it quad effective against it. So it's super effective against Dark and Dragon. That is the main reason why Fairy exists, is I genuinely think of that Pokemon. Yeah, the only powerful special attacking dragons were legendaries. Prior. Because Gen 4 had Dialga and Palkia, and Giratina. Well, Giratina you can play both ways. But, yeah. That was how it was. Gen 3 you had Rayquaza, who could also run either way. Definitely could run it special, but you usually ran it physical because E-Speed. And then they eventually gave it Dragon Ascent, which was a, oh yeah, we're definitely running this thing physical. But I think you could run, I think back in the day you ran Rayquaza as mix because you gave it Draco Meteor as its dragon move. So you could definitely run it a lot of ways. But yeah, even still. It's just hammering down the point. They needed something that could check dragons. And because of that, they could make dragons more powerful. Because they had to constrain them to being super weak to ice, which really limited the amount of types because, I don't know if you know this, a lot of types resist ice as well. Fire and steel being the two big ones. Dialga resists ice. Dialga doesn't have the classic weakness of a dragon. It was one of the first, I think it was the first dragon that didn't have a weakness to ice. Genuinely ever. No, it was Kingdra as well. Kingdra was the first one, but Kingdra was okay. Like, I love Kingdra. Kingdra is one of my favorite water types. But it's, you're not, very rarely are people going to be terrified of a Kingdra, right? Which resists ice. Its only real check was dragon back in the day. But Dialga, how do you deal with it? Dragon Steel was terrifying. There's no real answer to it. Admittedly, it's still good against Fairy. But, yeah. Oh, and Dialga and Palkia, actually, both resist ice. Because Palkia is Dragon Water, which always confused me. Palkia should not be. Palkia should not be a water type. I will stand with it. It's one of the two. It's one of the legendaries that should be different types. Lugia being the other one. Give Lugia the water type. Actually, yeah. Swap Lugia and Palkia's type. Put Psychic on Palkia and put Water on Lugia, and then we're in a much better slot. But yes, that's always been my thought. So because they added Fairy type, they massively opened up what was available with Dragon. Which I will always be thankful for Fairy types because I want more cool Pokemon, and I want more Pokemon types. And them originally, they made some of my favorite Pokemon ever in the early ones, because Salamence and Garchomp are obviously quad weak to ice. But them adding things that, like, Hydreigon, obviously then became super weak to Fairy. Kommo-o, I like Kommo-o a lot. People know I do. What's another one that's quad weak to Fairy? I'm trying to remember what Fairy is good against. Dragon Fighting and Dark are the three ones. Hey, nice to see you again, Ivory Princess. We haven't actually started the tier list yet, because I'm ranting about how I like Fairy as a type. Because it makes Dragon better, which is a thing that people don't realize. Them adding Fairy meant that you could have more combos with Dragon-type Pokemon, meaning that we get cooler shit, which I am a very big fan of, because they added Fairy. Now, they're still terrified as shit of adding any Fire Dragon types, because there aren't many. Oh yeah, there was obviously Reshiram as well in Gen 5, which was resistant to ice, and Kyurem, which resists ice as well. So, we got a lot of stuff, eventually. So they need to add more types that could actually check a dragon. Because I love Reshiram. Reshiram is an amazing Pokemon. The original Fire Dragon, I will always hold it a special place in my heart for me. I love Reshiram. I love Galarian Weezing. Galarian Weezing is genuinely the main reason why my Garchomp set runs Iron Head. Not kidding. My standard Garchomp set runs Iron Head specifically to deal with Galarian Weezing. Because it's a very, very good check against Garchomp otherwise. But yes, let's talk about the tiers in this very fun little tier list. So, S tier is Silpharena, or Sil, my favourite character from a book series I'm currently reading, who is a little sprightly, sassy little thing, and is one of my favourite characters in fiction. Earthquake, Banded. Yeah. That's the bit. Galarian Weezing can get Levitate. And that was regularly the one. When Garchomp wasn't banned in UU, you on almost every team. The second is an Artemis Fowl reference. You're right. Attention, Captain Ollie Short on deck. A tier. I basically was putting it in fairies that I like in order, and I love Holly Short. Holly's my favorite character from Artemis Fowl. She is. She's an absolutely amazing character. And I wanted to put her in A tier. I could have put her in C tier, but it's Holly Short. Come on, she's great. So I needed to put her in A tier. B is the Blue Fairy. Specifically, I'm remembering this as the Blue Fairy from Lies of P. So it's the Pinocchio Blue Fairy, obviously. But the one in Lies of P is a really, really interesting, cool character. Like, they did them very, very well. So, thought the Blue Fairy was a suitable B tier. C is Cosmo. Yes, Fairly Odd Parents Cosmo. He's pretty cool. It wasn't my favourite, but I used to watch it occasionally. I used to do babysitting when I was younger, was the main one where I watched a lot of Fairly Odd Parents with the kids I used to babysit. And stuff like that, right? They're a cool character. A lot of fun. They're a fucking idiot, but they have their moments, and they're a fun character. So it's like, yeah, C tier. C tier, remember, is my average tier in these tier lists. D tier, I actually couldn't find any fairies I didn't like, or I fucking couldn't find any fairies I knew who the fuck they were for D or E. So I had to improvise. So I put D as Dreadful Goblins. Basically, these are the types of goblins that are, like, not that interesting, really. Because goblins are really cool. But, you know, goblins and certain things can be kind of right? In once in a while, when they're like, they're like the beast antagonist kind of thing. They're just not that interesting sometimes. But some goblins can be absolutely fantastic, and I will say that. Evil gnomes. Ew. Evil gnomes. Evil, you know the ones I mean. I don't know. I've never liked gnomes, but gnomes have never really been one of my favorite fantasy races. It's pretty much like the last thing on my list for them. If I want to play something like that, I'll play a halfling or a dwarf, right? I'm not a huge gnome fan personally. Exactly, right? Dwarves are cooler. I like dwarves. I don't often end up playing dwarves because basically, like, my younger cousins always had the, like, their spot is the dwarf. Dwarf is their fantasy race of choice. So I've always gone, yes, dwarves are your thing. I'll pick something else because they like their dwarves, right? But dwarves are fantastic and I love them. And I like halflings as well. Halflings are really cool. I love the concept of, you know what, fuck this adventure. I'm just gonna go sit home and make myself a fucking good dinner. I get that. And I love it. But gnomes... If I was gonna play something... it's always the types of gnome. If I was gonna play the gnome that's like the little forest mischievous type, I'd play a fairy. I'd play a normal sprite or something, which are way cooler and I've always been a big fan of. If I was going to play the kind of inventy type that they occasionally do in a lot of things, I'd play a dwarf. So, that's always the part. Gnomes have never been on my list of, like... They are one of my lowest tier fantasy races for me personally. I know so many people that absolutely fucking love gnomes, and more power to you. They're not for me, though. They are not for me. They are not my one of choice. So, that's why they are the E tier. For reference, this, once again, is a tier list. One of my tier lists that has an E tier. E is this is an abomination and shouldn't be a Pokemon level tier. I hate this Pokemon. There is not many Pokemon that go to that, so most of my tier lists don't have them on the list. But there are a couple of types where I despise the one Pokemon or one or two Pokemon so much that they shouldn't be a thing. Or I really, really, really dislike them. So, Fairy is one of those types. But not many. I like a lot of fairy types, so I will be giving them that. Now then, let's begin, shall we? We are starting off, honestly, not that strong. Clefairy, I get people liking Clefairy, right? It's the OG. It was originally a normal type. I believe it changed to Pure Fairy. I believe Clefable turned Pure Fairy. I was never the biggest fan of regular Clefairy, but I don't dislike the Pokemon particularly, I would say. Yeah, I don't think I'd say I dislike it, but I don't really like it either. It is one of the most meh Pokemon, so I think I'll put this in a comfy C tier. I do like Clefable a bit more, but probably not enough to get it out of C tier. Clefable's got some amazing things, though. It almost gets out of C tier on its own, purely from Magic Bounce. I know this thing gets Magic Bounce, right? And Magic Bounce is one of my favorite abilities in the entirety of Pokemon. Mostly because I don't run hazard teams very often. Like, I don't run pure hazard teams ever. I've occasionally run hazards, mostly rocks. Because, like, you know, breaking sturdy, breaking sash. It's just a kind of nice thing to have, right? What am I being messaged with? Oh, a stream is about to start. Okay. But yeah. I much prefer... My opponent runs it, and I run a Magic Bounce. That's always been my preference. So I'll put Clefable there. You're definitely better than Clefairy. I like Clefable more than Clefairy. I quite like its design. But it's a very meh Pokemon for me personally. I know it's a very good Pokemon, but I've never been the biggest fan. Right? Now we're getting to the fun stuff. Alolan Ninetales. I fucking love this Pokemon. As everybody knows, if they saw the Ice-type video, this is one of my favorite Ice Pokemon in existence. It's also one of my favorite Fairy Pokemon in existence. I adore Alolan Ninetales. One of the best, if not the best, regional form. Genuinely. They cooked real hard with this Pokemon. I absolutely love it. It is literally also the hard counter to dragons. This is the anti-dragon Pokemon. But I love it. It being a Ninetales means it's a weather setter, and I like weather teams that aren't rain. Fuck rain. But also, this Pokemon I have used quite a lot. I have run this thing with Light Clay. This is one of my very few screen Pokemon. I don't usually tend to run screens a lot in Pokemon. This one, I will run with Aurora Veil. Like, Light Clay, Aurora Veil, put it into the snow coming down. God, this thing is so good. Also, I think this thing was almost exclusively designed to counter Garchomp, because it's a little bit faster than Garchomp, and is both types that Garchomp really is worried about. So, yeah, this thing is designed to counter my favorite Pokemon. I've got respect for it for that. I would actually run this on my team with Garchomp a lot as well, so it's a very, very strong Pokemon. Another Pokemon I would also run Iron Head on Garchomp for, because Quad weak to Steel. Quad weak to Steel, this has got a very clear, this is what it does. It hits hard, it's fast, and it puts up the massive defensive screens for weather and things. And also, it's one of the best weather setters, if not the best weather setter, for snow. So, big fan of this Pokemon. It's absolutely great. Excuse me, I had a bit of gas then. Jigglypuff. God, that hurts my throat doing that voice. But yes, Jigglypuff. I love Jigglypuff. I'm not a huge Wigglytuff fan, but I love the classic Jigglypuff. It's a little sphere. She's great. I love this thing. I have a big fondness for Jigglypuff specifically. I don't know why. I've always just thought they're very, very cute, is one of them. They're a little gremlin. I really like them. They're not an S tier Pokemon for me, but regular Jigglypuff, you're an easy A tier. I love this Pokemon a lot. I've not really used Jigglypuff too much, but I do really like it. It's a very fun Pokemon. It's very silly. It's the meme, right? So yeah, big props to Jigglypuff. Wigglytuff, I'm less of a fan, but I do think it's very cute still. It's still a cute Pokemon, which does deserve a bit of credit, but I like it more than Clefable, I will say. I don't think I'll put it in C tier, but it's definitely a B tier Pokemon. I like it, but I'm not a huge fan. Galarian Rapidash, however. I genuinely like the idea of Galarian Rapidash a lot. I've never used this Pokemon. I don't even know what it really does. Particularly, I know it's a Fairy Psychic type, which is a cool idea. It's a classic Unicorn, which, Unicorn's cool. I agree. They've done the classic version of, like, Avalon, Unicorn type thing. It's cool. I like regular Rapidash quite a bit. I'm not, like, the biggest fan of it, but, like, it's a cool Pokemon. I like horses. People know I like horses. They're kind of cool. So I would put Rapidash, I'd say comfy B tier as well. I definitely like it more than C. I don't think it needs to be in C tier. I don't quite like it, though, because, again, I don't really know what it does. But it's a fun Pokemon, right? Galarian Weezing, I hate you. Full credit, this Pokemon is insanely strong. I don't hate it. It's a very unique design, very cool abilities. It's a brick wall against so many Pokemon. It's a very, very nasty Pokemon to have a counter to it as well. But I'm not the Chimney Stack fan hugely myself. But I will put it in a C tier because I don't think it's offensive. I think it is a cool design. But I dislike it. But I absolutely get it if you like this Pokemon. So yeah, I put it as a, it doesn't deserve, I don't like its design for me personally, and it irritates me. But I will fully say it's a cool design and a cool idea for a Pokemon. I dislike how it works and how it uses. But it's very, very good, very, very cool as an idea. So I'll put it in C tier because a lot of the parts, basically, this Pokemon, it has a lot of props for being in B tier, and a lot of props for being in D tier. So I'm going to put it in C tier because I can't decide between the two. So, put it in the middle. Now then. I don't know if people know this about me, but I do talk about it quite a bit. I fucking hate Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime is one of my least favorite Pokemon in existence. I despise this thing on a fundamental level. It's weird looking. It's creepy. I want to punch it. I literally have said before, the only reason Mr. Mime exists in Pokemon Unite is for me to destroy it. I have genuinely said that. I hate Mr. Mime. It should be a forgotten Pokemon. Never bring this thing back. Ever. I despise it. I don't like how it works. I don't like how it looks. I don't like anything about it. You are the E tier. I hate this thing. You are one of the worst Pokemon ever conceived of. You are an abomination of Pokemon, and I wish you weren't in the game. You are not my least favorite Pokemon of all time, but it's damn close. You are probably top 3 least favorite Pokemon ever for me. I hate this thing so much. It's awful. It's awful. I will say the Galarian form, the Galarian Mr. Mime, slightly better, less weird. Still really, really dislike it. Probably top 10 least favorite Pokemon, but not top 3 like this thing. Mr. Rhyme, though, Mr. Rhyme's alright. Mr. Rhyme, I get. They made Mr. Mime, but they removed like 99% of its weirdness factor. So I will give Mr. Rhyme credit where credit's due. You are an okay Pokemon. If they made regular Mr. Mime an evolution, it would probably be less offensive, but I hate this thing so much. I despise Mr. Mime. So yeah. Number 1 would feed this thing to a Gengar. I really don't like this Pokemon. I need a bit of a drink after that rant, damn. Okay, Cleffa. I kind of like Cleffa. Cleffa I actually prefer to Clefable or Clefairy. I think it's very cute, you know. I don't know why. It looks like it's got little hair buttons to me, and it's like... It reminds me, I don't know why, of an onigiri. You know, there's little rice balls? There's little rice balls, which I really want to try, by the way. I want to try a proper one. I've had them before, and they were okay. I want to try a properly done onigiri. Real bad. And this Pokemon always reminds me of it. Any Pokemon that reminds me of food is usually a good sign. I'm sorry, Tepig. You remind me of food too much, but I dislike you because 3 firefightings in a row and you're the worst one by far. Actually, no, you're fine, but Infernape I hate. But Tepig, you remind me of dinner. So yeah. But yeah, Cleffa is a B tier for me. I like Cleffa more than Clefairy or Clefable. I think it's much cuter. And a lot of fairy type stuff, I will 100% say, fairy type is the cuteness type for me. A lot of the Pokemon on this list are either gorgeous looking or very, very cute. And for this type, that does take a lot of preference. Dragons, I like my dragons being cool. I like my fairies being cute. So you'll probably notice that. A lot of the creepier Pokemon on this section will probably get on a lower tier than they would otherwise. Or Pokemon designed to be ugly, because there are ones like that. And I don't like ugly Pokemon, personally. But Fairy tends to go, there's a few cool ones, a lot of cute ones, and a few ugly ones, I've always thought. And the cute ones for Fairy end up being the ones I like the most. Although they do cool very, very well for Fairy, as we will get to later. Igglybuff. Igglybuff I like, but less than Jigglypuff. I think it's less cute than Wigglytuff as well, but I do like it. I like the little ball. I also know that Pokemon, it reminds me of those little water balls you used to get if anyone had water balloon fights as a kid. Maybe that's a dated thing. Maybe that's just me being old. But that's the thing we used to do as kids, was we used to get, like, water balloons, balloons full of water, and we just throw them at each other and explode. It was a great time to have time. It was a simple life. But it was always fun, particularly on hot days like this. It would have been glorious, because it's very, very hot today, for reference. Or at least less hot, but humid. Which is why I am dying in this shirt. But yeah, Igglybuff, less than the other Wigglies and Iggly and Jiggly, but it's cute. It's very cute, and I like it. Togepi's B tier. I like Togepi. I love its noise. I'm never going to try. I've already hurt my throat doing Jigglypuff. I'm not going to do Togepi's voice today, but I do like this Pokemon. I think it's a very cool design, and I kind of dig it, honestly. Also, it's always had... I have fond memories of the Pokemon from the anime. Like, it's famous for Metronome. It's very silly. So, yeah, I like Togepi. I like Togetic as well. I think Togetic is also very, very cute. I don't really know what it reminds me of. It doesn't remind me of what most people say it reminds me of. They think it reminds them of, like, a hatched chick. It's never reminded me of that, but I don't really know what it does remind me of. I don't know, maybe a desk fan. Maybe a sentient desk fan. I don't really know, but I do like Togetic. It is very cute. Now, we get to an interesting conundrum here. Because Marill and Azumarill, right? So Azumarill is a very, very well-known, very nastily good Pokemon. This Pokemon is sleeper good. I don't even know if it's called sleeper good. It's fucking huge power, the Pokemon, right? This is the Pokemon you know huge power is an ability because this thing hits almost as hard as Garchomp baseline because of huge power. And after Belly Drum, it actually hits harder because of how huge power's multiplier works. This thing with a huge power Azumarill hits with +6, hits harder than a Garchomp with +6. But it's very comparable, the amount of damage they do. And this thing is obviously very, very bulky in its own right. Water Fairy is a pretty good typing. But I have a personal grudge against this Pokemon. I don't really know why. I've never been a huge fan of it. Marill, I will say, looks very cute, so it gets cuteness points. Azumarill, I'm putting you in D tier. It is a very good Pokemon, and I know a lot of people who love this thing. But I dislike it a little bit. This is a very, very good Pokemon, but I don't like Pokemon that use what it has, essentially. I don't like weird gimmick to do something simple, essentially. That's one of the things I never liked about it. I like Pokemon that have a weird gimmick that lets them do something weird, right? Or something kind of unique. Azumarill has a gimmick which other Pokemon which I prefer do. Like, it has the Belly Drum, high damage attacks. So does Snorlax. So does Hariyama. There's a lot of Pokemon I vastly prefer to Azumarill, which do the same thing. But Azumarill does it a lot better because it's very bulky. And, very bulky, it has huge power, which is a massive damage multiplier. And Water Fairy is a nastily good type combo. Only really weak to, what is it? It's weak to Grass, Electric, and Poison. And I think that's it, because it resists Steel with Water. So Fairy loses one of its weaknesses. So yeah, it's a very, very niche option that you won't always have the counter pick to, rather than the other Pokemon that do the same thing, which you've probably got the answers for. Also, it gets priority. Most of these other ones don't get priority, or at least don't get stab priority, like Aqua Jet. And Aqua Jet is a nightmarishly good move. So yeah, I am not a huge Azumarill fan. It's a very strong Pokemon, and I will fully say, anyone who likes it, I get you. But if I'm going to run something that's a brute strength beat stick Pokemon like that, I'm not going to go through the hassle of Belly Drum. I'm just going to use a Garchomp. Or I'm going to use something else that has, like, I don't know, Arcanine with E-Speed, right? There's other Pokemon I vastly prefer which do a very similar job to it, but this thing goes through hoops, which the hoops make it a little bit better than those Pokemon at their job, but Also, there are water fairy types which I vastly prefer, as we will get to later, because one of my favorite fairy types is a water fairy type, which is massively more favorable to me. In fact, I think there's only one more water fairy. Actually, there's two more water fairy types in this list. Both which are special attackers, though. And I like special attacking fairies. Snubbull, I hate Snubbull. I thought Snubbull is one of the ugliest Pokemon ever made. I know it's designed to, but I fucking hate it. I have never liked Snubbull. I never understand why people like Snubbull. It is one of them. It's not an E tier Pokemon. I will definitely say that. But it's a meh D tier. It's probably the lowest D tier Pokemon on this entire list. I'm trying to look if there's anything. No. Yeah. Snubbull, I'd say, is my lowest of I dislike this Pokemon, but don't abjectly hate it. It might be in the Pokemon that aren't the I will stab this Pokemon. It's not in that section. But I very much dislike it, and it might be my least favorite Pokemon. That is in this category. I do not like it. Gramble does make it up. I don't know why Gramble is pure fairy. I will fully say that. It so weirds me out. Gramble for me should be fairy fighting or fairy dark or something like that. They should have given it different typings or even keep it fairy normal. Like, it always weirded me out that this Pokemon is pure fairy. Snubbull I get. I think that if they make like a Mega Granbull, which I could kind of see, it's kind of a forgotten Pokemon, right? They might give it another type, but I don't know. Granbull's fine, but it's not. It's going into C tier because I vastly prefer it to Snubbull. Snubbull, I dislike the design. Granbull, it's the Bulldog. It kind of reminds me of Spike from Tom and Jerry. What was that his name? The big fucking Bulldog, you know the one. The Bulldog from Tom and Jerry, right? It always reminded me of that. Just weedier. So it's got something going for it, right? It's got a vibe. Not my vibe, but I like the tusks. I will say the tusks are very, very cool. Also, isn't it like a real cowardly Pokemon? Like, isn't that its thing? Like, it acts all big and tough, but is actual chicken shit. I think it's low. Y'all know exactly where these next ones are going. I am not going to apologize. So I will say, of all the early Pokemon that are on this list, and most of these turned into, all of these I think, with the exception of Galarian, Weezing, Galarian, Rapidash, and Alolan Ninetales, were changed to Fairy type when Gen 6 came around. The only reason those other ones weren't was because they were added after Gen 6. They were Gen 7 or Gen 8. Because of this next Pokemon is technically my first ever used Fairy type because I played Emerald a lot as a kid. And my first caught Pokemon after my starter was a Ralts. Because I went, oh, this looks kind of cute. And it kind of reminded me of Abra in a way. Because I kind of gauged it was a Psychic type. And I liked using Kadabra because I had no friends, so I didn't have an Alakazam as a kid. Well, I had no friends that lived close by. At least. But then came Ralts. And I went, oh, you're very cute. I like you a lot. And then I played with it, and it evolved into Corellia. Which I went, oh, you're quite cool as well. I like you. So I kept using it. And then she evolved into a Gardevoir. And Gardevoir remained on my team in Pokemon Emerald until I beat the game. That Gardevoir was on my team the entire duration of Emerald. Most of the Pokemon traded out. The only two that stayed that long were my actual starter. I might have in my first playthrough switched out my start because I didn't have Blaziken because I chose poorly because, I don't know. I like the lizard, right? I didn't know Blaziken was a thing when I picked it. Because I disliked Torchic and Combusken compared to Trico and Grovyle, but Blaziken eclipses Sceptile and it's not close. I was a kid and I was dumb, okay? I like lizards, but I like Blaziken more. Yeah. So yeah, I think that Gardevoir in Emerald was the only Pokemon that stuck around the entire time. Because in Emerald, I had a very dragon-heavy team in Emerald. If memory serves, my team when I eventually beat Emerald, if memory serves, was Gardevoir, Salamence, because I believe I had a Salamence, because I literally knew that it existed, so I searched it out. Because people had told me of a giant dragon that I'd love back in the day before the internet was really a thing. Because I'm an old man, it was a thing, but nobody did it. Nobody had like all the guides and stuff. So I just searched around until I found it. I believe it was Gardevoir, Salamence, Milotic, because I put in the fucking work. Flygon, Metagross, and Aggron, I believe was my 6th Pokemon that I beat the game with. So my longest running Pokemon in... Oh, I also had Rayquaza and Groudon eventually, but I can't remember if I swapped out for them eventually, but it was legendaries. I was a kid, okay? Because you could catch them prior to the story ending. Particularly Rayquaza. I love my Rayquaza. Still my favorite Pokemon. Joint with Garchomp and Charizard. But yeah, Ralts. Actually, I will say this. I prefer Alolan Ninetales to Ralts and Curlier. They're both very, very cute. But, call me sus all you want. I love Gardevoir. Gardevoir is an amazing Pokemon. It is one of my favorites. I love this thing so much. She is very, very cool. I believe I called her Serena or something like that, my original one of Serena. I loved my Gardevoir. She was such a powerhouse, and she was very reliable. Honestly, back in the day. I loved that Pokemon so much. It was my standards, you know, like, I remember, there was Ramira. No, Ruina. My original one was Ruina the Salamence. Was my ace Pokemon back in the day. Before Garchomp, before I played, like, Gen 4 and things like that. The Ruina, my Salamence, was an ace of mine. And Gardevoir was always a Pokemon I really, really liked and was super, super good. And then they made her a Fairy type and made her significantly better later on. And I'm a big fan of that. Also, I can comfortably say, also, amazing shiny Gardevoir line. Mega Gardevoir, I've actually, if anyone was seeing last week, my Uber run on Pokerogue, which did come to an end, by the way. I fell because of lack of flinching and really bad luck because it endured twice in a row. Eternamax turns to some floor 2000. My Mega run with Mega Lopunny and Mega Gardevoir finally ended, but I got a shitload of stuff out of it. I think I even have a Legendary Egg need to be hatched still. We might not be playing Pokerogue this week, though, because we played all last week. We might be playing some Pokemon Showdown. I might do some competitive again. It's been a while. I was fucking around on National Dex Monotypes again, doing a different team, doing Fire only. It was very fun. But yeah, people know I love Mega Gardevoir a lot as well. So Mega Gardevoir, I will put Gardevoir Original a little bit over, because I like putting the originals higher than the Megas, unless the Megas are like an outclassingly good one. Right? And Mega Gardevoir, I like her. She's great, and she's a massive upgrade. But she still has the same kind of job, right? So, yeah. Azurill, that I will say, I love Azurill a lot more than Marill or Azumarill. I think Azurill is so cute. I love the little orb. Also normal Fairy type, which I thought was kind of a nice touch, actually. But I think it's so adorable. Beyond imagining. I think this thing is incredibly cute. So, I'm going to put you at the top of B tier because I think you're a little squish ball. I love it. I love that thing. Now then, we get to another massively, hugely favorite Pokemon of mine. I love Mawile. I adore the thing. I have actually never used Mega Mawile. That is a Pokemon I still need to use for Mega Pokemon. But I have always loved Mawile. I thought it was such a cool idea for a Pokemon. It had really fucking bad stats back in the day. But I think it still has, to be honest. But it's such a cool design, and she's so cute. And then they made her a Fairy type, which I think, like, she's the original Fairy Steel type, which I think is very, very cool. One of my favorite typings in Pokemon as well. You are going up here to an S tier immediately. Now, here's one where I will actually say the Mega is a step above. This is one of the ones I was exactly talking about for Gardevoir. I love Mawile. Mawile is a great design. Mega Mawile is an amazing design. Mega Mawile is one of my favorite Mega Pokemon. Are you going here, actually? Yes, I think I'll put that there. Even having not used this thing, this is my huge power mon. If I'm ever going to use huge power in a Pokemon, it's this. This is the one I like, outside of randomizers and, like, swapping abilities around and stuff like that. I love Mega Mawile, and I want to try it so badly. I really want to try this Pokemon so much. You are an immediately high S tier because I know this thing is cracked. And I love its design. So, hell yes. Mega Altaria. I actually love this Pokemon. This is the only Dragon type on this list, which is fun. But I really like it. Dragon Fairy is the Dragon Killer type. I've called it before. I really like this thing. You are going in a comfy A tier, probably above Jigglypuff. I want them to do more Dragon Fairy types. They're a very, very rare type. For good reason. They're a very, very strong combination. Dragon and Fairy is a very good match together. But it's not a broken one. It's a very good match. So I really do like the Pokemon. I love Altaria. People know I love Altaria. So yeah. I would say a comfortable A tier. Comfy A. I also want to use this Pokemon. I think it's get Pixelate as well, which I love Pixelate as an ability. Same with Mega Gardevoir. I didn't really talk about that. Pixelate is a really fun ability. So, aces. Mime Jr., I don't hate you as much as Mr. Mime, but I still hate you. So you're going in D tier. In fact, you're going in D tier just here. I like Azumarill a little bit more. But yeah, I don't like Mime Jr. It's not as offensive as Mr. Mime, but I don't like it. It's a baby Mime. It also is one of the most puntable Pokemon imaginable. That's one thing that gets it plus sparks. Yeah, I don't like it. Togekiss, I do like Togekiss a lot. Togekiss is probably going here. I've not particularly used this Pokemon too much. Weirdly, outside of board game. I use this thing in a board game quite a lot, and this thing is an absolute tank in that game. I was the fairy trainer in Pokemon Legends of Sinnoh, where I got, basically, all your Pokemon count as asleep, so they can't be statused. But they don't get the downsides of being asleep. And, yeah. It's a very... If they're asleep, they start healing, essentially. So, it's a very, very cool Pokemon. I really like it. I know so many people who love this thing. I know this is a few people's ace Pokemon, which I can respect. It's a very good Pokemon. I get it being an ace. It's a worthy ace Pokemon. So, yeah. I like Togekiss a lot. Mega Ordino. I always forget Ordino exists. I'm going to be honest. But I think it's very cute, honestly. I think Mega Ordino also has, like... It's got a certain weird charm to it, right? Togekiss is OP. You're absolutely fucking right. I love that thing. Serene Grace. Fairy Flying Serene Grace. Beat stick of a Pokemon. Absolute tank. Great Pokemon. Mega Ordino. I do not remember what you do, but you're very cute. Scarf Air Slash as well, yeah. Uber crits. But yeah, Mega Rodino, you're getting about here, I think. I do like it. It is a very cute Pokemon. I don't even know what its Mega does. I think it's considered the worst Mega. It's between this and Mega Abomasnow, I'm pretty sure. It's considered the worst Mega Pokemon of all time. But, hey. It's cool. It's kind of cool, right? It's got a vibe. But yeah, I don't despise it. Put it in A. No, I'm keeping it in B. Togekiss is an A. That's staying. We got a lot more A tier to go through, don't worry. A lot of the later tier fairies are going to be an A tier, don't worry. It's not going to be that lonely for long. Okay, Cottony. I like Cottony a lot, but not because of its Cottony. Cottony, I'm going to put you in a B tier. I don't have a ton to talk about you. You're very, very cute, though. You're a very... It reminds me of Candy Floss, or like those little, powdered sugar sweets that you used to be able to get. I have a fondness for it. But Whimsicott now. Whimsicott, I love this Pokemon. One of the best shinies in Pokemon. I will stand by that statement. I'm not gonna put Whimsicott in S, but Whimsicott is the top of A tier at the moment. Easy top of A tier. If it was just on shinies alone, it would be S tier. But in a outright thing, there are other fairies. I would prefer to use all the fairies that are currently in S tier than Whimsicott. But Whimsicott is cracked. It's so powerfully good. Prankster, it's fast. Prankster Tailwind. Oh, hell yes. Also, I've actually run this in specs before to really mess with people. This thing is a beast. You can run this a lot of ways and people do not expect it. I love Whimsicott so much. It's a great Pokemon and I absolutely love it. And let's say, S tier shiny Pokemon. The blue and black color scheme. Oh, it just pops so well. I have actually hunted down for a shiny Whimsicott for a while and never found one. I'm so pissed. I've even tried in Scarlet Violet on Outbreaks and not found the bastard. So, yeah, I've been unlucky. I've been unlucky, but eventually, I will get one. Now, I just realized we don't actually technically have it. There's technically a Pokemon missing from this list. Eternal Flower Floette. If Eternal Flower Threat was on here, it would probably be A tier, just as a heads up. Hopefully we get it in Legends ZA. Or Eternal Flower Florges, hell yes. I love the black flower. But for Floette, Flittle, I can never remember the baby's name. Floette and Florges, they are cool Pokemon. They are cool. I like the blue color scheme the most. I think that just really works. I love the red as well. Orange and yellow, and the white one's pretty good. It's a cool Pokemon. Not really in my wheelhouse, though, but I'll put them in B tier. Pretty much all of them, I think, deserve B tier. They are very, very strong. 150 special defense, by the way. These things are nightmares to deal with if you've got so many special attackers. I'm very happy because of this Pokemon that I run a lot of physical attack. Kind of do think it should be Grass Fairy, but I'm not super invested in the Pokemon either, so I don't really care. They're fine. But I do quite like them. They are very, very fun to use. That gets the most of them. I quite like the design, and they're very fun to use. That gets most of their points. Spritzy and Aromatisse, I believe are these things' names. I don't really like either one, I'm gonna be honest. I think they're a weird design. They are very forgettable. And I don't know what they do. I don't know what their purpose is as Pokemon. They exist, right? That's literally all I can put, which puts them in a D tier because I can't remember what they do. I don't know anything about these Pokemon. That's doing it. They have a very forgettable design. They're very meh. I know they're mid in terms of are they good or not. They are just one of the extra, we need to bulk out the fairy type a bit. And here's some bulk out Pokemon. Like, every type's got to have some kind of meh Pokemon in it. And those, to me, this is exactly what their job is, right? Yeah. Slurpuff, and I can't remember the name of these Pokemon either. But I do like them a bit more because they're Candy Floss. So, Candy Floss, props. They look delicious. I would eat these Pokemon. Swirlix and Slurpuff, something like that. I can't fucking remember the names, but they're fine. They're fine. They are basically, to me, a better designed Aromatisse. Genuinely. That's all it really is. Now we've got to another S tier. Sylveon! Now I will say, Sylveon, I prefer all the other S tiers. But it's still a Sylveon. Come on, it's an evolution. It's a very pretty evolution. Also, an amazing shiny. The blue Sylveon really, really looks good. It's another Pixelate mon, which I love Pixelate, as you know. I adore evolutions. People know I adore evolutions. And, genuinely, Sylveon is one of the ones I have used to the most effect. I would probably put this thing... in my lineup of evolutions, it's comparable to any of my favorites. My favorite evolution outright is Glaceon. Probably second favorite is Leafeon, then Vaporeon, then Espeon, and then Sylveon. But I will tell you, those five are all really high up there in the props for them. I love all of them, genuinely. And I'm a big fan of Sylveon, particularly as well. The last added evolution, please add more, Game Freak. We need more. We need our steel. We need our fighting. We need our dragon. We need our ground. We need our rock. There's more types to do, okay? So yeah, Sylveon is a beautiful Pokemon. I really, really love it. It's very, very cute. And it's very, very good as well. Hidden ability Pixelate. As soon as you get that on, give it Hyper Voice. And you're off to the races, really. I love Specs. Okay. Oh, my, okay, it's reset my alerts. That's good to know. But yes, David, thank you for the sub, buddy. It's greatly appreciated. 2-month streak. Thank you very much. Cheers, bud. Okay. Yeah, I need to change my alerts back, because I think it's reset them, evidently. Because that should be, I think there should be a T-Rex roar or something. I don't really know. Or a wolf howl. I can't remember which. I think the wolf howl's by follow. Oh, well, we'll figure it out. Okay. Dedenne. You exist as a Pokemon. You are one of the most forgettable Pikachu clones. I'm not kidding. That's really saying something. I dislike this Pokemon. I just say top of D tier. I don't abjectly hate it, but I don't like it. It doesn't do anything, really. But you know what? I will check my... Yeah, why the hell have we got this? It looks like a hamster, exactly. Okay. Yeah. I'll fix that later. But yeah, I've never been a big fan of Dedenne. Really. It's fine. It's just there, right? But, now... is it Carbink? Is this thing's name? I actually quite like this Pokemon. I think it's Carbink, right? Yeah, Carbink. I actually kind of like Carbink. I don't know why. I like my gems. I like gemstones. It's the Bee-Boo of Pokemon. Hey, bud. Glad you can finally make it. Yeah, Carbink, I actually quite like this Pokemon. It is very fun to use. Dies to Steel types. Like, that's hard to Steel types. But I kind of like Rock Fairy as a concept, right? It's kind of cool. This thing is bulky as all hell as well. And I actually kind of like the design. It's a simple design of just rock full of gems. But it kind of works, right? It happens, right? No need to worry. Okay, so Carbink, I actually quite like you. You are going to the top of B tier. This is Fairy types day. I couldn't remember what I'd actually scheduled in. So I decided, fuck it, I'm doing Fairy types. Because I do like Fairy types. It's an interesting one. Mr. Mime is down in the bottom and will not move. Mr. Mime is in the stomp it to death category. Klefki, okay. Klefki is by far my least favorite of the Steel Fairies. Steel Fairy is one of my favorite types in the entirety of Pokemon, just as a heads up. And it gets Prankster, which is very good. It's a really aggravating to deal with Pokemon, which I kind of like in a weird sort of way. Also, this Pokemon is hilarious for being one of the Pokemon that is absolutely hard-countered by something it, by all rights, should hard-counter. I actually quite often end up countering this thing with Garchomp. It can do work against Garchomp, to be fair, but this is a Fairy type that wants to switch out against away from Dragon types quite a lot, because Dragon types usually have an answer for it. And it doesn't have the power to kind of make up for it because it's a pure support Pokemon. But this thing can be really, really aggravating if you know how to set it up. One of the most interesting ones I've actually seen is Switcheroo Toxic Orb on this thing, which is kind of a fun way to play it, so... I can recommend that if you want a really, really aggravating set to run for people. Run a Klefki with Switcheroo with a Toxic Orb on it, because it is a Steel type. It can't be poisoned. And it learns Switcheroo, which means you can give the Toxic Orb to your opponent and steal their items. You can steal their Choice Band. Also, it's a Prankster, so you're going first. You can steal their Choice Band and give them a Toxic Orb, which means they get Toxic. Which is kind of cool. So, yeah. But I don't really like it. I'm going to put it in C tier. Because I don't hate it. Because it's got some vibes. It's got some kind of cool things you can do with it. But at the end of the day, it's a set of keys. Xerneas! I like Xerneas a lot. Geomancy is an amazingly cool move. It's obviously one of the big six. This Pokemon... I don't think I need to harp on about how fucking obscenely strong Xerneas is. Xerneas is one of the strongest Pokemon ever made. Genuinely. This thing is broken, but I love it. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with it in Legends ZA, because I'm convinced it'll get either a Mega Form or some sort of Giga Form. It'll get something going with it, and I like the Giant Antler Deer. The Giant Life Deer. Are you getting S tier for me? Probably. Oh, are you? Yeah. I'd say it's S tier. It's lower than these. I prefer all these others. But fucking hell is Xerneas just cool, right? I can't help it. I do love Xerneas a lot. Okay. Diancie. I like Diancie. Diancie is essentially, to me, kind of Uber Carbink. Genuinely, I love it. Diamond Storm is a really fun move. I don't think I'll put you here in A tier. And Mega Diancie goes above it because I think the design is... Diancie, to me, is a Pokemon that always was intended to Mega Evolve, right? That's always what it kind of is. Diancie herself is good. Mega Diancie, whew, powerhouse of this thing. Basically, this thing, I think all the Mega really does is swap its defensive stats, because Diancie is very defensive, for its offensive stats. So this thing goes from super defensive brick wall of a Pokemon to an absolute beatstick broken monster of a Pokemon. Diancie is really, really cool. Mega Diancie is even better. I love the giant chandelier design. Yeah, I really, really like this thing, and it's the only Gen 6 Mega, which is really weird to think of, because Megas were introduced in Gen 6, and it's the only one. It's generally the only one that was added. Which, to be fair, I will say, might be a blessing in disguise, considering that in Gen 8, they made a few Pokemon, looking at you, Duraludon, which were intended to be, this is good because of its Gigantamax. And then they removed Gigantamax and never bringing it back. So it became just shite. And then they brought out Archaludon to fix the problem that Duraludon wasn't very good. So I think that making the Gen 6s have to stand in a vacuum and then... Hell yeah, I only have the Stage 2 Shiny Megalopunny. But my Megalopunny run finally ended on floor 2000 because I got very unlucky and the Eternamax Eternatus endured twice in a row, which I didn't even know it could do. It just didn't die. And it managed to get some power through the team. And I didn't want to try and cheese it because I'd lose too many items. So, that run ended on floor 2000, which was a very, very good run. Yeah. Now we have one of my favorite water starters. One of my two favorite water starters, easily. Primarina. Primarina is one of the biggest, Hell yeah, that's a combo. Yes. Primarina is an absolutely amazing Pokemon. One of my favorite water starters. One of my two favorite water starters, and it's really hard to gauge which one I actually prefer, because it's between this thing and Fraligator. But I will say, Poplio is not a good-looking starter. I do not like Poplio as a starter. I do not like... Brionne's fine. Brionne, the middle stage, is fine. It's one of the better middle stages. But I'm not a huge fan of it. But Primarina is a beautiful Pokemon, and it's insanely powerful. Very, very good Pokemon. I really like running it. This thing is literally a tank. It has a massive special attack stat, a massive special defense stat, a massive health pool. It is exactly what a water type needs to do. And I was saying, Water Fairy has some real cracked Pokemon in it, and there's one that I really like way more. Yeah, this is the one I like way more. You, Primarina, are going into S tier. Probably, right? Actually, are you to S tier? Are you the top of A or S tier? You're not going there. Looking at what we got left... No, you're the top of A. I think you are the top of A. I don't think anything's actually taking the spot from you. Yeah, I'd say every Pokemon that is above Primarina is an S tier Pokemon. And everything below Primarina is an A tier Pokemon. So, yeah. I am happy Primarina being the #1 of A tier and will probably remain that way for the Fairy type tier list. Okay. Cutiefly and Ribombee. Tinkerbell. Everyone knows I like this Pokemon quite a lot. Cutiefly, you are going here, and Ribombee, you are going here, probably, right? Yeah. I actually really, really like these Pokemon. I think they are a very cool design. I think Ribombee is unrepentantly adorable. That thing is one of the cutest Pokemon ever made. Genuinely. In pure cuteness, it's great. It's actually quite a good Pokemon as well. It gets Shield Dust, which is a great ability. Ignores the secondary effects of moves. It gets, no flinch chance from fake out. No. Basically, it's got a covert cloak built in, which is a really cool one. This thing is fast as hell as well, which is also very nice. You can run this thing very commonly. This thing is like the lead Pokemon. This is like one of the best lead Pokemon ever. It gets sticky webs. You can give it a focus sash, so it's always going to get that sticky webs out. It's got good things. It's got taunt. You can make this thing do so much work. You can also make it attack quite well. It gets like Bug Buzz and Moonblast and a lot of really nice moves. I really like Rabombi. Rabombi is a great Pokemon. So, very big props for this thing. It is really fun. Shinotic, and I don't know the name of the baby. I'm going to be honest. You are another very forgettable... Actually, not even beat it. You are a very forgettable set of Pokemon. I think you get Spore. But it's barely a thing. It's not a D tier. It's not that bad, because I don't hate its design, but I don't like its design. But it's forgettable, but it's not in a massive negative way. It's just kind of forgettable, honestly. I'll put them in this order, actually, because I think the baby form is a little bit cuter. I can't remember the name of this Pokemon, but I know it as Triage. Comfey. Comfey is a beast. This Pokemon is really strong. People underestimate how good this thing is. People think it's bad. It's not. It's really not. If you think this thing is bad, you've never used it right. This thing is a powerhouse. Triage is insane. It gives every healing move +3 priority. +3! That beats Extreme Speed! Draining Kiss, you build this thing bulky as hell. This thing does obscene work. It does so much work. I've been swept by this thing and swept people with this thing when I figured out how to actually run it. It's a bit of a niche Pokemon, but my god does it do work when it can. Like, when you are able to use it correctly, this thing is a beast. So, do not underestimate this thing. Mimikyu. I love this thing. Of all the Pikachu clones, this is the best. And it's not close. Mimikyu is adorable. I love its idea. I think it's so ungodly cute. Its ability is great. Like, Disguise is an awesome ability. It actually had to be nerfed. Yeah. Mimikyu is amazingly good. It's really fun to use. I also have loved going against it because, oh, the Scrappy skill. Scrappy skill is amazing. Yeah, I love Scrappy. But yeah, Mimikyu is absolutely amazing. I also love going against Mimikyu because I have seen someone play their Mimikyu and try to set up with Sword Stance, right? Against my Tinkaton. Howdy, Luke! Hope you're doing good. By the way, I will be posting in the Fangs chat later because I got some info. We've got a lot of stuff to do. I got pinged about all the monster times that we've been requested for today. So I said I'll talk about it after stream. We got a lot. I say they're all opt-in whenever we feel like it. But yeah, there's going to be some good ones. There's going to be a lot of good ones. Yeah, I literally got the encounter list. I know. We discussed it in a Fangs meeting the other day. Okay. The Tapus! We now have the Tapus. Tapu Koko, Tapu Lele, Tapu Bubu, Tapu Finny. I generally like all the Tapus, actually. Tapu Koko is crazy good. I have gone up against this thing a lot in monotypes. This thing is actually a very, very common sight in monotypes. I think it's one of the strongest, if not the strongest, Tapu. Yeah, Tapu Koko is crazy good. I love its design. One of my favorite electric types, genuinely. I like all of them. Though I do like that one of the 4 Tapus are known as Tapu Koko, Tapu Lele, Tapu Finny, and Rillaboom. Because Rillaboom is better than Tapu Boo at everything Tapu Boo does. So, Tapu Koko, I will put you as a comfy A tier, but where to put you? I think I'll put you here. I've not really used Tapu Koko, but I know how it works. I know it's very good. This thing is obscenely fast. Puts up the electric terrain. It's a beat stick. Tapu Lele. This is the Tapu that I think I could enjoy the most. It's the one I don't have in Pokerogue, but this is the one I can imagine enjoying the most. You run this thing Choice Scarfed because it sets up the psychic terrain, which means it can't be out priorities. Oh yeah, I hate Mr. Mime. This thing is an absolute monster. I would probably put you in just behind Primarina. I can imagine loving this thing so much to use. And this is one of the ones I want to use a lot. And if I'll probably run it in a future thing. I already know in what. Personal preference, I don't like Azumarill. It's really good, I don't like Azumarill. Is the reason why Azumarill is in D tier. I personally do not like it. Tapu Boo-Boo, it's probably my least favorite Tapu. I still think, is it deserve it? No, it's B tier, isn't it? Yeah, it's a B tier. It's not a bad B tier, though. I put it there. And Tapu Fini, I like. I like Tapu Fini. Tapu Fini is a fantastic design. This is the tank of the Tapus. Like, the others all have their own jobs. This is the tank one. Where do you put you? You're definitely A tier. Probably around Coco, honestly. I don't like Gramble. Gramble is bad, and I'm kind of on it, so... Magearna, I do like Magearna. Magearna is a good one. I'd say Magearna is an A tier as well. I like the Fairy Steel type. It's a very, very powerful Pokemon, this thing. Probably around here. I like the other color scheme more. I like the original, the red and gold. Looks very, very good. I do also love its lore that the alternate forms are just... The original is how it looks fresh out the box. This one... Okay, of course it is. I love God of War. But yeah, Magearna is really, really good. And I really, really like it. But not enough to put it in S tier. But I really like the Pokemon. I've not actually used this thing. I believe this is the Fleur Cannon Pokemon as well, which is a really cool move. So yeah, big props to that. Hatterene! Everyone knows I love Alpha. This is one of my Alphaba Pokemon. Because I've never run it on the same team as my other Alphaba Pokemon, so I've not needed to switch the names out. But Hatterene, I love this thing. Another one of my absolute all-star favorites. This is one of the main reasons I want to run Pokemon... What's it called? Sword and Shield. I want to have a Hatterene on the team. I love this thing. It's basically slow tank Gardevoir. And I really like that. It's a really cool Pokemon. I like how it works. It gets Magic Bounce, which I love. This is my Magic Bounce Pokemon. If anyone hasn't seen this, right here is my Magic Bounce Pokemon. I've run this in competitive. This thing is a monster. Hatterene is a monster. I will very often lead with this thing, with Calm Mind, Lefties, massive physical defense stat, massive health bar, just throwing out Mystical Fires, not Moonblast, Draining Kisses, because it's actually tanky, so you heal up, and Psychic. If memory serves, I think I run 3 attacks and Calm Mind on this thing. Let leftovers just bulk her up. This thing is obscene. I love it. These are very comparable. This top section here. I have regularly used Gardevoir, Alolan Ninetales, and Hatterene all in competitive, and they're all really, really good. Okay, Impidimp. Impidimp is fine. I like the name. I think I'll put you here, Impidimp. You are a okay Pokemon. Same with Morgrim. Morgrim is another okay Pokemon. Right, I quite like him. I like the Goblin vibe. They're kind of sneaky. Now, I will say, these are good Goblins, right? Now, Grimmsnarl, the big full evolved one, I kind of love it. I also just realized this doesn't have Gigantamaxes on it, because Gigantamax Hatterene I love, and Gigantamax Grimmsnarl is better than Grimmsnarl. I'll put Grimmsnarl here. I love this thing. Not an S tier one for me, but it's a very strong A tier. Look at what it's up with. Actually, probably, do I put it above Jigglypuff? Probably. Above Jigglypuff, below Rabombi. I'm happy with that. I love Grimmsnarl. Gigantamax Grimmsnarl would be S tier. I will say that. G-Max Grimmsnarl is a huge upgrade on the design. I know you're not. But I really like Grimmsnarl a lot. I love, like, the hair turning into, like, muscles kind of vibe. It is really cool. I love that you can run this thing so many ways as well. You can run this like bulky screen, full support Pokemon. You can run this thing as a brawler. Like, I love running this thing as a brawler. Like, I did Prankster Bulk Up with this thing before with Draining Punch, Play Rough, and Crunch. If memory serves. With Leftovers, max health, max attack, adamant nature. That thing goes hard. I've also run it Assault Vest. You can run this thing in so many ways. And it's very good at all of them. So it's just a great Pokemon. I like Hatterini more. And they kind of fill a lot of very similar roles a lot of the time. They are fairly slow, very bulky powerhouses. But I like them both a lot. Just in similar range, I like Hatterini more. Emo Goblin. Also, it's Marnie's Gigantamax Pokemon. And Marnie is one of my favorite characters from Sword and Shield. I think she's a really cool idea for a character. So, hell yeah. But I will say yes, Gigantamax Grimmsnarl would be S tier. Will I say that? I think the Demon Lord vibe looks amazing. If they make a Mega Grimmsnarl, I hope it gets a similar design. Genuinely do. I think it's a very, very cool design. One of the best looking Gigantamaxes. Milcery, okay. I like Milcery. I can't not, right? I think this thing is obscenely cute. It's little milkshake. I like it a lot. It's so cute. I put you around here. You get in there on cuteness vibes. Same with your evolution, honestly. I like Alcremie. G-Max Alcremie is hilarious looking as well. The giant cake, which we actually did a calculation. So, this is the brain rot that me and a bunch of friends occasionally get. We did a calculation on how many megatons of TNT one of the missiles from Gigantamax Alcremie does. Because it actually has kilocalories. It actually has an estimate of how much power in kilocalories it does. So we actually calculate it. It's basically got the explosive yield of a ton of TNT. Each of those missiles that it fires has an explosive yield of 1 ton of TNT. Or like 10 tons. I can't remember the exact calculation. But it was way more than you'd be comfortable with considering it's coming from a fucking cake. Okay? It's hilarious, and I love this thing. I love all the different forms as well. I love how you make the different forms. Like if you spin around on the spot, you can get like more whipped up versions. I think it's really cool. I like it. It's very cute. And this thing can go hard, genuinely. If you get some chances to set up with Alcremie, that thing can actually do a lot of work. One of my favorite legendaries. I talked about Zacian in the Steel type tier list. People know I love this thing. Oh, I just realized it doesn't have the other form of Enamorous as well. That's kind of a pain in the arse. I don't like either one, though. But yeah, Zacian, the absolute beast of a legendary, the Sword Saint herself. I love this thing. Zacian, one of my favorite legendaries. Basically, in terms of power, this thing is like Mega Mawile again. I love its design. I love how it works. Genuinely, Zacian ended up being... I'm eventually, for reference, one of the playthroughs I will eventually do, probably after I get my new computer sorted out, will be to get Pokemon Sword, right? And play it. The actual ending factor on whether I get Pokemon Sword or Shield was Zacian over Zamazenta. I prefer Zacian to Zamazenta. Zamazenta's cool, but basically there were a lot of pros and cons and a lot of Pokemon's like, I'm not planning on using either of these. Which ended up being for Pokemon Sword and Shield. So, yeah, I need a new PC. The King of OU. Oh, Zacian's great! I like Zacian. Oh, that's Zamazenta. I like Zamazenta. I just massively prefer Zacian. That's what it comes down to. Zamazenta is a very cool Pokemon. Do not think I'm shitting on Zamazenta. Zamazenta is a cool boy. I like the Shield mode as well. It's like bulky. Still an Uber's Pokemon, by the way. Shield mode is still Uber's. He did suffer for Zacian's obscene attack power, though. Originally, because they both got nerfed down a bit. Both crown forms got nerfed because Zacian was a bit too good. It's solo Zacian. Not in my experience. I have comfortably one-shot a Zamazenta with Crown Zacian. I have dealt with Zamazenta quite easily before. Because Zamazenta can't kill Zacian in one hit, even with a body press, even with a crit body press. Whereas a Behemoth Blade, because basically, You accept that your opponent's going to get one hit off. So you just take the chance to Sword Stance. It does, but the thing is, Sword Stance up the Behemoth Blade will kill. Whereas a Body Press is not guaranteed. Even 9 defense Body Press isn't guaranteed because it's neutral. Yeah. I have beaten Zamazenta considerably easier with Zacian than I have otherwise. I've done it. Also, play rough. It doesn't always kill. Zacian's not that squishy. Yeah, I've killed it with one. That's how I know. Also, I don't think it is. I don't think steel is resisted by fighting, is it? I thought it was only single resist. Yeah. Not ×4 resist. Fighting does not resist steel. And I down one with the Sword Stance up crit Behemoth Blade. I have done that before. Mostly because the poor bastard decided to switch in on it. Didn't help. And a crit ignores the stat upgrades as well, meaning that the shield did not help. Yeah, I love using Zacian a lot, and she does beat Zamazenta pretty comfortably. She just hits so hard. +3 attack and a very, very respectable attack stat. But yeah, she's a beast. Behemoth Bash is neutral. So there's that. The main bit of Steel Fairy is a really good typing because Fairy resists fighting and Steel resists Steel. Meaning it being very nasty to deal with them. Because it's not super effective. Which does give the player rough. It gives the player rough some notice, to be fair. But you'd be amazed at how much work it can do. Enamorous. I don't like Enamorous. Top of D tier. I don't like it. I was talking about the genies a lot. They're all fine. I don't like Enamorous much. As a fairy type, specifically. I think I gave this last week in Flying as well. I gave it a pretty poor review. I just don't really like this Pokemon. It's not a fun one to use. It does have Contrary, but it's not great. It's a powerful Pokemon, don't get me wrong. It's still a legendary, but Daxbun and Fido. Fido is very cute. Fido, you're getting here. Daxbun, I think, is honestly just a little bit above you as well. I don't think that either of them are B tier. But I don't put them high A tier. I think they're both low A tier. But they're all very cute. I like the little doggos. Well-Bent Body is a great ability as well. So, yeah. Now we get to a lot of S tier Pokemon and Screamtail. I love Screamtail a lot for reference, but you're not getting S tier Screamtail, I'm sorry. But everything else here is S tier. Tinker-Tink, I love you, little... yes. I put Tinker-Tink around with Rolls. Tinker-Tuff, I'll put around with Corellia. Tinker-Ton is my #1! I love Millim. Millim, my fairy. Sorry about my knees. I'm wearing shorts because it's fucking hot. Gigaton Hammer! I love Tink so much. I have used this Pokemon a lot. Probably my favorite Gen 9 Pokemon, genuinely, and I'm really excited that this Pokemon will probably be a staple for the rest of Pokemon. It was so well received. It's very good as well. And yeah, Gigaton Hammer. Give it a Mega, please. It's not going to get a Mega, I don't think, but I love this thing. I have run it a lot. It's very, very good. All of its abilities I've used. I have used Mold Breaker as my go-to to get rid of abilities, mostly to get that Gigaton Hammer Obliterate Mimikyu off, was a Mold Breaker hit. I've used Pickpocket in our Gym Leader tournament quite a bit. I've used Pickpocket in Pokerogue. It's just a really good Pokemon. Just all around. I will say, Screamtail, you're a great Pokemon. And I really, really like you. You're probably going here. You are a very respectably high A tier. I love that they made a Jigglypuff, but crazy angry. I also like that they based it off Jigglypuff, not Wigglytuff. They literally, it's what? It's Jigglypuff, but instead of singing, it's Ree. I think is someone described it. But I like it. Possibly it's one of the weaker Paradoxes. It's very defensive, which is not really what Paradoxes usually do. But that gives it like a niche, right? Same type as Gardevoir as well, which Fairy Psychic is crazy good. Now we've got two of my favourite Paradoxes. We probably have my second favourite Paradox, and my favourite of the futuristic Paradoxes here. Elphaba, my shiny, I will say, I own this one. I have a shiny Fluttermane. And Fluttermane is right there. Well-deserved spot on that. I adore Fluttermane. The only one she's being beaten by are Gardevoir and Tinkaton, and I'm very happy with that. Fluttermane is one of the strongest Pokemon ever made, as well. The destroyer of... Honestly, she's a fucking respectable Pokemon in Ubers. Like, this thing is obscenely good. I have run Modest Fluttermane before. I believe she's better with Timid, but I have run Modest, and I'm going to be honest, if you get hit by a Moonblast or a Shadow Ball from Modest Proto-Synthesis up Fluttermane, I don't care what you are or what your resistances are. You're dead. If you are up against the Timid one, you're being outsped by you outspeed nearly anything in existence. Fluttermane is a great Pokemon. I also love Mischievous' design, but it was never that powerful. I talked about this before. I love Mismagius a lot, but it's not got the power to make it up. And its design is worse than Mischievous. With Fluttermane, you basically have the more power than Mismagius has, but the design, the beautiful design of Mischievous. So, Fluttermane is a ace tier Pokemon, one of my favorites. It's going to get a really, really, really high mark in Ghost as well. This is one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. And Iron Valiant, the best of the futuristic Paradoxes, a very, very respectable mark, just behind Zacian, I'd say. This thing is a titan. They literally went Hyper Offense the Pokemon. It is Fairy Fighting, which is a viciously good offensive combo. It has no defensive ability whatsoever, but this thing is fast and it hits hard in every way. So, yeah, this thing is a brutal Pokemon. I also love the design. I love the mix of mixing Mega Gardevoir with Mega Gallade's design. And then removing the Psychic type from both of them to give him the other two types. I generally love it because it's like a full circle. I massively prefer Gardevoir to Gallade, as people quite often know. But I do really like Gallade still. Gallade is a very good Pokemon. I just vastly prefer Gardevoir, and if I'm going to use one, I'm probably only going to use one because I don't like running too many Psychic types on a team. And there's fighting types I prefer to Gallade as well. But Gallade is a very good Pokemon, and I do respect it. But I will say, I prefer Gardevoir to, as I say, I prefer Gardevoir to Iron Valiant. I prefer Iron Valiant to Gallade. So, it's a nice, like, even one for it. And I love it. Very, very good Pokemon. But yeah, Fairy type, as you might imagine, it's one of the least... It is one of generally the least, number of Pokemon in the type. Wow, that actually cuts off perfectly. Yeah, yeah, Xerneas is the tail end of S tier, so that's actually a perfect cut. Just to prove it, I'll turn webcam off for a brief instance, but yeah. There we go. Look at that, a Fairy type tier list. I say, a lot of A tier, quite a lot of S tier, a lot of B tier as well. Oh, it freaking broke, didn't it? Yeah. Enter, 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 and enter. Will that work now? Presentation mode. Nah, it just bugged. Oh well. I'm top heavy. Yeah. But hey, Fairy type's a great Pokemon. I like a lot more Fairy types than I dislike. Genuinely. As I say, they were a healthy and good addition to the game, because basically, the addition of fairy type to counter dragons means we could get cooler dragons. And that's one of the reasons why I love fairy type. Fairy type was made to counter dragons, but in reality it was made to make dragons stronger. Because dragons will endure. You will never get fairy types that completely eclipse all dragon types. Fairy types are used as a counter pick to dragon types. But that means that dragon types can still remain insanely powerful because fairy types are the counter, so they can make dragons broken because there's always a foil for them, which I really like. The strongest fairy types are obscenely strong, like freaking Zacian and Fluttermane are terrors. And also Xerneas. Do not forget Xerneas, one of the strongest Pokemon ever as well, one of the big six. But these things are crazy good, and I love fairy types. And then there's Mr. Mime, which I despise more than almost any Pokemon in existence. So this has actually been a quite short stream because, again, there's not that many fairy types. There's a couple of types which have even less than fairy. But a lot of the fairies I also don't really have much to say about because most of them are just there. Like, a lot of the early Gen 6, like, meh fairies, they were just added, in my opinion, to bulk out the fairy type. Fairies, they started to really get their grasp on what fairies should be later on in Pokemon. So that's why a lot of the later fairies are very, very good. There's some absolute aces earlier on as well. But if you actually look at my top tiers, the only fairy types in my top list that are, like, really early are Mawile and Gardevoir, which I liked before they were fairy types. Yeah. Every single other one was added in one of the quite late gens. Like, Mega Mawile. Gen 6, but it's a Mega. Actually, it might have been, yeah, it was late Gen 6, I think. Mega Gardevoir, late Gen 6. It's a Mega. Alolan Ninetales, Gen 7. Hatterini, Gen 8. Iron Valiant, Gen 9. Zacian, Gen 8. Fluttermane, Gen 9. Tinkaton's Line, Gen 9. Xerneas was Gen 6, but legendary. Sylveon, Gen 6, but Evolution. Evolutions are all good. So again, it's kind of the bit, right? But they started really cooking with fairies a little bit later, so there's some piecemeal ones. Through various gens, which are significantly better than others. And again, a lot of the A tier, I do really, really like a lot of the A tier. B tier is fine. There's some cool ones in B tier. C. The C tier, the average tier for me, in fairy types, is probably one of the most mid-averages. Because for me, fairies are very feast or famine in a lot of cases. The fairies that are low on this tier list, nearly all of them are just awful. And the mid tiers are okay, but the ones that are high on this list are usually very, very high up in my list. Like, the fairies I like, I really like. The fairies I dislike, I really dislike. That's most of them. But yes, that is all we got time for today. I'll be on tomorrow. I might be doing some competitive Pokemon. I might play some Showdown tomorrow. See how I feel. Or we might do something else. I don't really know. But I've got ideas and stuff. So we'll see what I feel like. But yes, hope you guys enjoyed the show. Have a fantastic evening. One of you keep playing video games. Can you also guess all the best on Twitch? Enjoy yourselves, guys. Have a lovely evening. I will try and fix my Twitch alerts. And I will be posting about monster stuff in the Northern Fangs Discord later on. So be aware of that. When I fix my Twitch alert stuff, most likely I'll then start posting. But yeah, should be a fun time. Hope you guys enjoyed. Good night. See ya!